Hi, this is Tutor Nick P, and this is lesson 525. The title of today's lesson is the difference between abbreviation, acronym, and initialism. Okay, sometimes students may ask, what's the difference between these three? Most students have an idea of what an abbreviation is. A lot of students don't really always know what an acronym is. And initialism, no, they probably never even heard of that. So anyway, if somebody wants a screenshot, do it right now. Let's get right to it. An abbreviation is a short form of a word, such as RD for road, ST for street or saint. So, you know, if the ST follows the name of a street or a road, then it's actually for street. So like 42nd Street, 34th Street, or some street like that. NJ stands for New Jersey, NY for New York. So all the states, you know, have their abbreviations. Now, people don't usually say, like nobody says, I live in NJ. They'll say, I live in New Jersey. But if it's written, you could see it abbreviated that way. Same thing with New York. MT for Mount. Mount's a tricky one. I did YouTube videos on this before too, because a lot of students, I've often noticed when they see Mount, the MT written next to the mountain's name, they often pronounce it as mountain. That's wrong. MT is like a title of the name of a mountain. So never pronounce that as mountain. And I just wrote here because the MTN mountain has its own abbreviation. It's MTM. It's not MT. Okay. All right, let's continue. Now, an acronym. All right, here's where it gets tricky, because basically acronyms and initialisms are also types of abbreviations. So they're all abbreviations. But the ones I gave you up here are just abbreviations. They're not acronyms, and they are not initialisms. All right, so what is an acronym? All right, this one is the easiest one to kind of clarify. An acronym is an abbreviation in which all the initials of words form a new word, which is then pronounced like a regular word. It's pronounced like its own individual word. Such examples include NATO for North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Yeah, like you could say NATO is meeting next week. Or NASA for National Aeronautics and Space Administration. So the American Space Agency, yeah, you could say, you know, NASA, you know, sent some satellites up to space, or maybe they sent a rover to Mars or something like that. All right, let's continue. AIDS for Acquired Immune Deficiency Syndrome. Yeah, I remember this was one years ago, especially in Asia. A lot of students used to say AIDS. So they actually used to read it like an initialism. But it is, in fact, an acronym. Nobody in the States says AIDS. Everybody says AIDS, like somebody got AIDS or somebody recovered from AIDS. Yes. All right, let's continue. SARS, same thing, another disease here. It's an acronym. We read it as SARS. Stands for Severe Acute Respiratory Syndrome. Okay. OPEC for Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries. Again, it sounds like its own words, like OPEC is meeting next week, you know, to discuss about the price of oil or something like that. All right, let's continue. All right, now an initialism. An initialism is a type of abbreviation, and some claim an acronym. So some say that technically this is an acronym as well. But instead of reading all the initials like a regular word, each initial is pronounced separately. Some common examples are FBI. So a lot of organizations. Yeah, of course, FBI standing for Federal Bureau of Investigation. Or PTSD standing for Post-Traumatic Stress Disorder. Yeah, we often say somebody suffers from PTSD. So again, we read it by pronouncing each individual letter. It's not pronounced like a word, like an acronym. It's pronounced each individual letter. That's the way we do it. All right, let's continue. KFC, you know, for Kentucky Fried Chicken. Okay, good. NYC for New York City, of course. Now, this one's actually funny because NY would just really be an initial, but NYC is often pronounced like an initialism. Somebody might say, well, he lives in NYC. Of course, they could say he lives in New York City as well. All right, let's continue. Here are two examples that are sometimes pronounced like an acronym and sometimes pronounced like an initialism. All right, here's the first one, ASAP. Now, ASAP, I think originally was an initialism, but over time, I've heard some people in offices, they started pronouncing ASAP. We need that ASAP, or of course, you could still use it as we need that ASAP. Okay. And, WHO. I think, again, it was originally an initialism, but this is one that's pronounceable. So sometimes even in the media, I hear them say the who. They'll say the. They often use a the with it when they read it kind of like an acronym. But really, I think originally it was an initialism too. We said it as WHO. But I'm not surprised because it's pronounceable. So if it's pronounceable, it could become like an acronym because all acronyms are pronounceable. They're able to be pronounced. Just like the initialisms, a lot of them are not. Like FBI, you can't even, you try to pronounce it, it doesn't make any sense. All right, let's continue. And we got 4 examples to show just how we may use this. Here's the first one. Some businesses use initialisms, as, like BMW and IBM for names. Okay, so, the company, they use an initialism, BMW. IBM, International Business Machines. Okay, good. Number 2 here. Some organizations such as DARE, which actually stands for Drug Abuse Resistance Education, use an acronym as a name. Okay, so could be either one. Many titles use abbreviations, such as, the MR for Mr. So again, we don't usually read it as MR. Nobody says that is MR Smith. They'll say Mr. Smith, even though the MR is short for Mr. Okay, or Mrs. Same thing, MRS, for Mrs. And then of course you got Ms. too, or DR for doctor, of course. Yeah, nobody says, he is a DR. They'll say he is a doctor, or they'll say Dr. Smith or Dr. Jones or whatever their name is. Okay, so great. All right, and the last one here, DNA is an initialism, of course. So, okay, anyway, I hope you got it. I hope now you can kind of clearly see the difference between the 3 and, basically how they'll be used, or more importantly, how they'll be pronounced. Okay, anyway, I hope you got it. I hope it was informative. Thank you for your time. Bye-bye.